I can still hear the clinking of glasses that night, the fake applause, the hollow laughter bouncing off the walls of the Dallas Country Club's private dining hall. It was supposed to be our 10th anniversary, 10 years of marriage. 10 years of me standing by Ryan through every setback, every excuse, every demand from his mother. Instead, it turned into the stage for my humiliation. The moment I walked into the room, I should have known something was wrong. The decorations screamed Evelyn, not me. Gaudy crystal centerpieces, roses the color of dried blood, waiters in white gloves. She never hid her disdain for me. But to use my anniversary as her show? That was a new low. Ryan was already at the head of the table, grinning like he had won something. He looked sharp in his tailored suit, the one I picked out for him last Christmas. But his eyes darted toward his mother as if waiting for permission before even greeting me. Evelyn sat proudly beside him, diamonds dripping off her neck like she was the queen of Dallas society. I plastered on my polite smile, kissed my daughter Harper on the forehead, and slid into my seat. My heart thudded against my ribs, but I swallowed it down. I told myself it was just nerves, just another night of surviving Evelyn's subtle digs. But then Evelyn stood. She tapped her spoon against her champagne flute, and the room fell silent. Every pair of eyes turned to her. She flashed that cruel little smile, the one that had haunted me since the first day I married her son, and cleared her throat. "Tonight," she began, her voice slicing through the air, "we celebrate not only Ryan's success, but the endurance of this marriage. A marriage that frankly has survived far longer than most expected." The crowd chuckled, like they were all in on a private joke. My stomach dropped. Evelyn continued. Her words dipped in venom masked as humor. "It hasn't been easy. My son, of course, has always been ambitious, driven, respectable. But some contributions have not always been equal." The room tensed. A few guests glanced at me with awkward smiles, unsure of how to react. Ryan didn't move. He just sat there, nodding, as if every word out of his mother's mouth was gospel. Evelyn pressed on. "We all know Taylor has had her struggles managing money, her little spending habits. We all remember the inheritance, don't we? How quickly that vanished into thin air." The words hit me like a slap, but I stayed still. My nails dug crescents into my palm under the table. That inheritance had paid for the down payment on our home, carried Ryan when his business nearly collapsed. And here she was, twisting it into proof of my incompetence. "Frankly," Evelyn said, lifting her glass, "Ryan deserves recognition for holding this family together, for enduring, for providing stability where others could not." The applause that followed wasn't loud. It was hesitant, uncomfortable, but it was enough. Enough to slice me open. Ryan finally rose to his feet, adjusting his cufflinks like he was preparing for his victory lap. "Mom's right," he said. His voice was steady, confident, rehearsed. "Marriage isn't 50-50 when one person can't keep up. I've carried more than my share, and I think it's time people knew the truth." The truth. He said it like a dagger. He said it like I wasn't sitting right there. "Taylor," Ryan added, turning toward me, "you've let this family down more than once. I didn't let him finish." The wine glass in front of me was full, deep red, heavy in my hand. I stood, slow and deliberate, and every head swiveled to follow me. My heart hammered, but my voice, when it came, was clear. "You want truth?" I asked. Ryan froze. Evelyn's smirk faltered. The glass tilted in my hand, and in one sharp motion, I hurled it across his perfect white shirt. The wine splattered across his chest like blood blooming on cotton. Gasps filled the room, chairs scraped back. Ryan's jaw dropped, eyes wide, humiliated in front of his colleagues, his friends, his precious mother's crowd. Evelyn let out a shriek, clutching her pearls like some caricature of herself. I leaned closer, close enough that only he and Evelyn could hear me. "You think you can destroy me in front of everyone? You have no idea what I've got on you both." Ryan blinked, confused, trying to regain footing. "What the hell are you talking about?" I smiled then. Not a kind smile, but the kind you give before you pull the trigger. You'll find out soon enough. I straightened, turned to Harper, and extended my hand. She slipped her small fingers into mine, eyes wide. But she trusted me completely. As we walked toward the exit, the whispers followed us like smoke. I didn't care. I wanted them to talk. I wanted every single person in that room to remember the sight of Ryan drenched in wine, his mother's face pale for once, and me walking out unbroken. Because that was the night I decided I wasn't the victim anymore. I was the storm, and they had no idea what was coming. When I married Ryan, I thought I was choosing love. Looking back, I realize I was also choosing his mother. Evelyn had her claws in him from the start. She played the role of the devoted matriarch, but beneath that polished smile was a woman who never forgave me for not being born into money. I met Ryan at a friend's rooftop party in downtown Dallas. He was charming, funny in a self-deprecating way, and quick to talk about how hard he was working to make something of himself. I admired that drive. I thought we were building a partnership, two people climbing together. But I learned fast that his mother's approval was his real ambition. In the early years, I gave more than I ever thought I had to give. I scaled back my career to manage our household, to help him chase his business ventures. I poured my inheritance into a house that had both of our names on the deed, even though I was the one who made it possible. Ryan promised he'd pay me back, that he'd match my sacrifices when his success came. But success never really came. Not without me holding things together in the background. Then Harper was born, and everything shifted. She became the reason I endured the late nights, the dismissive tone, the constant criticism from Evelyn. That little girl's laugh could heal anything. She was my anchor. But Evelyn treated Harper like another pawn in her endless game, molding Ryan into the perfect son who always came home to Mama for advice. She'd slip comments at family dinners. "Poor Taylor, she doesn't quite manage the budget, does she?" And Ryan would just laugh it off, as if defending me would cost him points. I told myself to ignore it. I told myself it didn't matter, because what we had was bigger than their opinions. But the cracks were already forming. There were the late nights at the office, the sudden trips out of town, the excuses that never quite lined up. Ryan's phone turned face down on the table, his temper quick to spark when I asked simple questions. And Evelyn always covering for him. "Ryan works so hard, Taylor. You really should be more supportive." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe us. But then came the little confirmations that pierced through my denial. One night, Harper was sitting on the couch coloring while I folded laundry. She looked up at me, innocent eyes wide, and said, "Mommy, why did Daddy hug that lady at school today? He said she was his friend, but they hugged for a long time." My hands froze around the shirt I was folding. I forced a smile and asked her what she meant, my voice shaking. She described Ryan in the school parking lot with a woman who wasn't me. Tall, dark hair, laughing like they shared a secret. Harper didn't know what she'd seen, but I did. It was the kind of detail a child couldn't invent. Later that week, my best friend Serena confirmed the suspicion I had tried so hard to bury. She'd seen Ryan at a bar in Uptown, leaning close to the same woman, their hands brushing like they'd done it 1,000 times. She told me straight, her voice firm, no pity in her eyes, because pity would have broken me. "Taylor," she said, "this isn't a one-time thing. He's been doing this for a while." That was the moment everything inside me hardened. The inheritance, the sacrifices, the way I let Evelyn strip my confidence piece by piece. I thought I was protecting a marriage, but really, I'd been protecting a man who never valued me, a mother-in-law who wanted me gone, and a life built on their terms. The stakes weren't just about love anymore. They were about Harper's stability, about the home I had paid for, about reclaiming my dignity after years of letting them grind it down. When Harper asked me again later, in her small, timid voice, "Mommy, why are you sad?" I hugged her tight and whispered, "Don't worry, baby. Mommy's going to fix everything." And I meant it. The morning after the anniversary dinner, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. My body ached from the weight of humiliation, but my mind was sharper than it had ever been. There's something about betrayal. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. And once the dam breaks, there's no going back to silence. I stared at Ryan sleeping on the couch downstairs. He had stumbled in sometime after midnight, reeking of whiskey, his shirt still stained with the remnants of my wine. I almost laughed at the sight, his so-called perfect image, ruined in one night. But this wasn't about laughing. It was about dismantling everything he and Evelyn thought they could build on my back. The first move was simple: survival. I quietly gathered my essentials: important documents, jewelry, Harper's birth certificate, and the emergency savings account card I'd hidden away for years. I stuffed them into a tote bag and slid it into the trunk of my car. The second move was protection. Before Ryan even stirred, I was on the phone with the bank. My name was on every joint account, and I wasn't about to let him drain them dry. I froze access, shifted balances, and rerouted deposits into a new account under my name only. When the banker asked if I was sure, I said yes without hesitation. By the time Ryan stumbled into the kitchen, groggy and defensive, I was already 2 steps ahead. He grunted something about overreacting, but I didn't respond. For the first time, I didn't defend myself, didn't argue, didn't plead for him to see reason. Silence was more powerful than words. The third move was preparation. I pulled out the leather binder I'd been building for months, my secret file. Receipts, screenshots, copies of wire transfers Ryan thought I didn't know about. Texts between him and Evelyn that revealed her manipulation and his obedience. Even emails from his mistress, the one Harper had seen him with at school. I had been collecting them in secret, convincing myself I was being paranoid. Turns out I was just preparing for war. That afternoon, I called Serena. She didn't even let me finish before saying, "Finally, what do you need me to do?" "Names," I told her. "Lawyers, the kind who don't flinch when things get messy." Within an hour, I had 3 recommendations. By the end of the day, I had a consultation scheduled with one of Dallas's most ruthless divorce attorneys. I wasn't here for compromise. I was here for victory. When Harper got home from school, I kept everything light. We did homework together, made mac and cheese, and curled up for a movie. But even then, I felt the weight of what I was about to do pressing on my chest. I looked at her little face, so innocent, and swore to myself that no matter how ugly this got, she would never be collateral damage. That night, Ryan finally noticed the missing access. I heard him from the kitchen, cursing as his card got declined online. He stormed into the room, eyes wild. "What the hell did you do?" he barked. I met his gaze, calm and steady. "I protected what's mine." "You can't just—" "I already did." The silence between us stretched, heavy and dangerous. He wasn't used to this version of me. He was used to me smoothing things over, begging for peace, giving in for the sake of the marriage. But those days were dead. "You think you can just walk away?" he hissed. "You think people will believe you over me?" I almost smiled. "I don't need them to believe me, Ryan. I have proof." For the first time, I saw fear flicker in his eyes. He tried to mask it with anger, but I caught it. And it was enough. When he finally stormed out, slamming the door behind him, I didn't chase. I poured myself a glass of water, sat down at the dining table, and opened my binder. Page after page, I laid it all out, building the case in my mind like a prosecutor. This wasn't about anger anymore. It wasn't even about heartbreak. This was about strategy, about reclaiming everything they thought they could strip from me. I had been the quiet, loyal wife for 10 years. Now, I was something else entirely. And Ryan had no idea that the game had already shifted. The fallout came quicker than even I expected. The morning after I froze the accounts, Ryan's world started to crumble, and I savored every second of it. I heard him before I saw him, storming through the house, slamming doors, muttering curses under his breath. His credit card had been declined at the gas station, then again when he tried to buy lunch. By the time he walked back in, His face was flushed with rage. "You cut me off," he growled, jabbing a finger toward me like I was some misbehaving child. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" "Yes," I said evenly. "I've stopped you from draining everything I worked for." That shut him up for half a beat, but his pride wouldn't let him stay quiet. "This is temporary. My mother will fix this." Of course, he ran straight back to her. Evelyn had always been his safety net, his enabler, the voice in his ear convincing him that I was replaceable. But money talks, and this time I'd cut off the sound. Later that day, Serena texted me a screenshot of a group chat from one of Evelyn's charity circles. They were buzzing about the scene at our anniversary dinner, about the wine dripping down Ryan's suit, about Evelyn's speech turning sour. Dallas was small in its own way, social circles tighter than a noose. By the end of the week, everyone who mattered would have heard the story, and Evelyn hated nothing more than whispers she couldn't control. 2 days later, I was at the grocery store when I spotted one of Evelyn's friends, a woman who usually pretended I didn't exist, suddenly rushing to greet me. Her tone was syrupy, false, but I caught the curiosity burning in her eyes. "How are you holding up, Taylor? Must be so hard with everything going on." I smiled politely, but inside, I felt the shift. The narrative wasn't just Ryan's anymore. People were watching, waiting, wondering if the perfect mother-son duo was cracking. And then came the mistress. Her name was Kelsey. Young, ambitious, the kind of woman Ryan liked to show off when he thought no one was looking. She worked at his office, which made it easy for him to play hero while stringing her along. But when the money dried up, when his image started to sour, Kelsey realized she'd hitched herself to a sinking ship. I know this because Serena ran into her at a bar one night and overheard her ranting to a friend. "He promised me he was leaving his wife. He promised me his mom would take care of us. Now he's broke, his card got declined, and Kelsey practically spat my name. She's not leaving, she's winning. Winning. That word wrapped around me like armor. Ryan's desperation grew by the day. First came the angry texts, paragraphs about how ungrateful I was, how I'd regret making an enemy of him. Then came the pleading ones. "Can we talk? We can fix this." I ignored them all. Silence was my weapon, and it cut deeper than any words. Harper noticed the tension, of course. She asked why Daddy wasn't eating dinner with us, why he was always shouting into the phone. I kept my answers gentle but firm. "Daddy made some choices. Mommy's making sure we're safe." She nodded, her little brow furrowed, and hugged me tighter than usual. That hug fueled me more than anything. Evelyn finally broke her silence 3 days later. She called, her voice sharp as glass. "Taylor, whatever stunt you're pulling, it won't last. Ryan is my son. This family doesn't survive without me, and you know it." I let her finish, then said the one thing I knew would rattle her. "I have everything documented. Every shady transfer, every lie. If you want to test me, go ahead." For the first time in years, she didn't have a comeback. She hung up instead. That silence was worth more than gold, but Ryan wasn't done. On the 4th night, there was pounding on my front door. I looked through the peephole and saw him, disheveled, desperate, fists clenched at his sides. Harper was asleep upstairs, and for that, I was grateful. I opened the door just enough to look him in the eye. "You can't keep shutting me out," he snapped. "We need to talk." "You had 10 years to talk," I said coldly. "You chose lies instead." "This isn't just about us." His voice cracked, raw panic leaking through. "You're ruining everything. You're ruining me." I met his stare, unflinching. "No, Ryan. You did that all on your own." I closed the door before he could respond, the sound of the lock sliding into place echoing like thunder in my chest. That was the first time I saw real fear in him. Not just anger, not just arrogance, but fear. He was losing control, and he knew it. And me? For the first time in years, I felt powerful. Dallas thrives on appearances. The right restaurant, the right table, the right crowd. Everything was about who saw you and what they whispered afterward. That's why Ryan chose Del Frisco's for his comeback. He thought he could rewrite the story by parading himself and Evelyn in front of their people, all polished smiles and fake laughter. But I wasn't going to let him control the narrative this time. Serena tipped me off. They've got a table for 10 at the center of the room. Ryan's wearing that smug grin again, like none of this ever happened. You sure you want to do this? More than sure, I said. When I walked through those glass doors, heads turned. My heels clicked against the marble floor, sharp and deliberate. I could feel eyes following me, whispers rippling like static. And at that center table, Ryan's grin faltered the second he saw me. Evelyn stiffened, her martini glass frozen halfway to her lips. I didn't wait for an invitation. I walked straight to their table, pulled out an empty chair, and sat down like I belonged there more than either of them ever did. The silence was electric. Finally, Ryan cleared his throat. Taylor, this is unexpected. Unexpected? I tilted my head. So was being ambushed at my own anniversary dinner. But here we are. A couple of Evelyn's friends shifted uncomfortably. One of Ryan's colleagues leaned forward, clearly savoring the drama. I wanted every single one of them to see. Evelyn recovered first, her voice syrupy but tight. Taylor, dear, this really isn't the place. I cut her off, loud enough for the entire room to hear. No, Evelyn, this is exactly the place. I pulled a folder from my bag and laid it on the white tablecloth. My secret file, piece by piece, neatly organized. I slid a page across the table toward Ryan. Recognize this? I asked. He glanced down and paled. It was a printed bank statement showing a wire transfer from our joint account, straight into a hidden account he thought I didn't know about. Tens of thousands, funneled quietly over months. Gasps sounded from the table. Ryan? One of his colleagues asked, brows raised. Ryan stammered. This is out of context. Oh, I've got context, I said. I flipped to the next page and slid it forward. An email between him and Kelsey, the mistress, laughing about me being too busy playing mom to notice anything. The color drained from Evelyn's face. She tried to snatch the papers, but I held firm. You wanted to humiliate me in public, I said, my voice steady, ringing through the dining room. You wanted to paint me as weak, as unworthy. But the truth is, you've been stealing from your own family. And Evelyn, you knew. You covered for him. The table erupted in whispers. A man at the next table craned his neck, clearly catching every word. The manager hovered nearby, too nervous to intervene. Ryan's mask cracked, his voice desperate now. Taylor, please, let's talk about this privately. No, I snapped. You wanted an audience. Now you have one. I leaned in closer, my voice low but clear enough to carry. You think I'm the one who looks bad here? Look around, Ryan. Look at their faces. They're not laughing at me anymore. He glanced at his colleagues, at Evelyn's friends, at the strangers openly watching. His shoulders sagged under the weight of their judgment. Then I delivered the line I knew would spread like wildfire. Congratulations, Ryan. You didn't just cheat on your wife, you embezzled from your own daughter's future. That's the kind of man you are. The room went silent. Even the waiters froze. And then, like a wave, the whispers began. Phones came out. Screens lit up. This was going to travel faster than any spin Evelyn could put together. Kelsey must have caught wind too, because just then, she appeared at the bar. She froze when she saw me at the table, then saw the stack of papers. Her face went white. Without a word, she turned on her heel and left. Ryan's head dropped into his hands. Evelyn's lips pressed into a thin line, fury and panic battling across her face. For once, she had no script. I stood, gathered my file, and looked around the room. Enjoy your dinner, everyone. Don't let the lies spoil your appetite. And with that, I walked out. The buzz followed me all the way to the valet. People whispering my name, people repeating my words, people snapping photos of Ryan's ashen face through the window. By the time my car pulled up, the damage was done. Back in the driver's seat, my hands trembled. Not from fear, but from adrenaline. From power. For the first time in a decade, I wasn't the woman they ridiculed or dismissed. I was the woman who turned their game against them. And Ryan? He was nothing more than a headline waiting to happen. I knew Ryan wouldn't go quietly. Men like him never do. Humiliation wasn't the end for him. It was just the beginning of a performance. If he couldn't control me, he'd try to control the story. It started the next morning. A slick, carefully edited video popped up on his social media. Ryan, sitting in a pristine office, dressed in a navy suit, hands folded like a man who wanted to look remorseful but dignified. The caption read, "My truth. I hit play. Many of you have heard rumors," he began, his voice calm, almost pleading. "My wife and I are going through a difficult time, and unfortunately, certain private matters have been twisted and spread publicly. I love my daughter, I respect my family, and I've done everything I can to support them. But Taylor," he paused, exhaling like the weight of the world was on him. "Taylor has been struggling for years, with spending, with stability, with emotional balance. I never wanted this to go public, but she forced my hand. I ask for your prayers and understanding." My blood boiled. He framed me as unstable, irresponsible, the kind of mother who couldn't be trusted. He turned his betrayal into a pity plea, and people bought it, at first. Comments poured in. "Stay strong, Ryan. Praying for you. She sounds toxic." But he underestimated me. By noon, I'd already sent the video to Serena. She didn't waste a second. "He wants a PR war? Let's give him one." We started with receipts, literal receipts, screenshots of his wire transfers, text threads with Kelsey, and voice recordings of Evelyn coaching him on how to hide money. I didn't post them myself. That would have been too easy, too obvious. Instead, I slid them to a Dallas gossip blogger known for tearing apart local scandals. Within hours, the screenshots were up with a headline that screamed, "Dallas Golden Boy caught double-dealing his own wife." It spread like wildfire. Twitter, TikTok, Instagram. The story wasn't just whispered in charity circles anymore. It was trending. People dissected every screenshot, every message. Hashtags exploded. Taylor was right. She Winegate, and my personal favorite, Evelyn's Empire. Suddenly, Ryan's video was being duetted by influencers mocking his crocodile tears. Clips of him stammering in Del Frisco's played on loop, spliced with sarcastic captions. Strangers who'd never met me were calling him out as a fraud, a cheater, a man-child hiding behind his mother's diamonds. Evelyn tried damage control too. She released a statement through one of her charities, dripping with condescension. Families go through hardships, but spreading lies publicly only hurts the children. That backfired instantly. Someone dug up old photos of Evelyn berating waitstaff at events, screenshots of lawsuits against her for unpaid contractors, even whispers of shady tax dealings. The internet doesn't forgive, and it doesn't forget. By day 3, Ryan's reputation was scorched earth. His office quietly placed him on leave pending review. Clients started pulling out. Kelsey vanished completely. Her social media wiped. Her name scrubbed from company rosters. And Evelyn? She stopped showing up at luncheons. Her once loyal friends suddenly too busy to take her calls. The most surreal part was watching strangers take my side. Women I'd never met stitched together TikToks saying, "Taylor, if you see this, we believe you." Others shared their own betrayal stories, calling me a symbol of standing up and fighting back. My DMs overflowed with support. But it wasn't just social media. Local news stations picked it up. One anchor, smirking slightly, reported, "Prominent Dallas businessman Ryan Johnson is under fire tonight after allegations of infidelity and financial misconduct. His wife, Taylor, has presented compelling evidence, and the court of public opinion is weighing in loudly." Ryan called that night. I let it go to voicemail. His voice shook with panic. "Taylor, please, you have to stop this. You're destroying me. Think about Harper. Think about what this does to her. We can settle this quietly. Just Take it all down. I replayed that message 3 times, not because I doubted myself, but because I wanted to savor the sound of his power slipping away. For years, Evelyn convinced him I was powerless. For years, he believed it. Now he knew the truth. My silence had never meant weakness. It meant I was biding my time. The final blow came when someone leaked a recording from Del Frisco's. One of Evelyn's friends had captured the entire confrontation on her phone. The video hit the internet like gasoline on fire. Me sliding the papers across the table, Ryan stammering, my line about him embezzling from Harper's future. It went viral overnight. Millions of views. People captioned it, "This is how you expose a liar." Iconic. Justice served with a side of wine. Ryan's name was mud. Evelyn's carefully constructed empire was collapsing in real time. And me? For the first time, I wasn't just surviving. I was winning the narrative. Of course, winning didn't erase the pain. At night, after Harper was asleep, I'd sit in the quiet and feel the weight of everything pressing on me. The years wasted, the trust shattered, the constant gnawing fear of what came next. But then I'd think about her, about the world I was building for her, and it steadied me. Ryan thought he could bury me with lies. Evelyn thought she could erase me with humiliation. Instead, they lit a fire that burned their own house down, and I wasn't finished yet. If the public humiliation had been the spark, the courtroom was the wildfire. I didn't come this far just to watch Ryan squirm online. I wanted every legal thread of his life unraveled until he was left with nothing but ashes. The divorce proceedings began in a downtown Dallas courthouse that smelled of marble polish and fear. Ryan strutted in with Evelyn at his side, both dressed like they were attending a gala, not a dismantling. His lawyer was sharp but smug, clearly convinced Ryan's charm would sway the judge. Mine, on the other hand, was Serena's top recommendation, a woman named Marissa who could cut a man down with a single look. She didn't bother with theatrics. She came armed with facts, documentation, and the firepower of my secret file. Ryan tried to spin his usual lines. I was unstable, overspent, a bad manager of money. But every claim he made, Marissa shredded with receipts. Wire transfers traced directly to his hidden accounts. Emails tying Evelyn to financial cover-ups. Even text messages from Kelsey demanding promises he never kept. Every time Ryan shifted in his seat, his mask cracked a little more. The judge didn't need long to see through him. Harper's custody was the first hammer to fall. Ryan argued for joint custody, painting himself as the devoted father. But Marissa presented evidence of his neglect. Missed school pickups. Weekends he pawned her off on Evelyn so he could play house with Kelsey. I added my own testimony, calm and steady, about the nights Harper asked why Daddy wasn't home. By the end, the judge ruled in my favor. Full custody to me, supervised visits for him until further review. Ryan's face when the gavel dropped. It wasn't anger this time. It was panic. The kind of panic that told me he finally understood. I wasn't bluffing. Next came the house. The deed had both our names, but the down payment had been my inheritance. I had the paperwork to prove it. Marissa laid it out like a weapon, and Ryan's lawyer sputtered. The ruling was clear. The house was mine, clean and untouchable. Then came the finances. Ryan had tried to hide assets, funneling money into shell accounts under Evelyn's guidance. But once those records hit the courtroom, it was over. The judge froze his accounts, ordered restitution, and demanded full disclosure of every financial stream. Evelyn's name came up again and again, her fingerprints all over the cover-up. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Microphones shoved into faces, cameras flashing. Ryan tried to make a statement once, something about false accusations. But when a journalist fired back with specifics from the leaked receipts, he stammered and walked away. Evelyn avoided them altogether, shielding her face with designer sunglasses, her empire crumbling in the daylight. The legal blows didn't stop there. Evelyn's siblings, wealthy, connected, tired of her arrogance, saw an opportunity. With her scandals splattered across every screen, they began severing ties, cutting her off from the family estate. I heard whispers of board votes removing her from charities, foundations distancing themselves. Her once loyal friends stopped calling. By the end of the month, Evelyn was as isolated as her son. The mistress collapsed next. Kelsey filed her resignation quietly, but not before a few choice screenshots of her messages leaked online. She went from Instagram perfect brunches to deleting her accounts overnight. I almost pitied her. Almost. She thought she was climbing, but she was just a rung on Ryan's broken ladder. Ryan, meanwhile, spiraled. His company cut him loose officially. Misconduct unbecoming of an executive. The condo he'd been hiding in downtown was repossessed when the payments stopped. By the second month, he was crashing on friends' couches, the same friends who now whispered about his downfall in group chats I had screenshots of. Through it all, Harper and I built something new. I turned one room of the house into a bright office, filed the paperwork to relaunch my career full-time, and enrolled Harper in art classes she'd begged for. The laughter in our home grew louder, freer, unchained from the weight of Ryan's shadow. But the sweetest moment came during the final settlement hearing. Ryan, gaunt and tired, sat across from me, his hands trembling as the judge read the final orders. Full custody to me. Majority of assets awarded to me. Child support locked in, based on what little income he had left. Evelyn barred from interfering in custody matters. The gavel fell, final and sharp. Ryan slumped like a man who'd been hollowed out. When it was over, Evelyn hissed at me in the hallway, her voice low but venomous. You think you've won. But families like ours always find a way back. I leaned in, steady and unshaken. Families like yours fall the hardest, and you just proved it. She had no reply. The irony wasn't lost on me. Evelyn had spent a decade trying to erase me, and now she was the one erased. Ryan had spent a decade using me, and now he had nothing left to take. They wanted me to break quietly. Instead, I rebuilt loudly, piece by piece, until the courts, the public, and even their own allies turned against them. And the best part? I didn't have to scream or beg or plead. I just let the truth do the work. By the time it was over, Ryan was broke, Evelyn was disgraced, and I, finally, was free. I didn't expect to see Ryan again so soon. After the final hearing, I thought he'd disappear into whatever shadowy corner of Dallas would still take him. But 2 weeks later, Marissa called to tell me he'd requested a face-to-face meeting. Don't go alone, she advised. I promised her I wouldn't, but deep down, I knew I had to look him in the eyes one last time. Not to reconcile, not to reopen old wounds, but to close the book completely. We agreed on neutral ground, a small cafe near the courthouse. Bright daylight, plenty of people around. No place for secrets. I arrived early, sat at a corner table and ordered black coffee. My hands didn't shake. My heart didn't race. I wasn't nervous. I was done being nervous around Ryan. When he walked in, I almost didn't recognize him. The man who used to strut through rooms like he owned them now looked hollow, smaller somehow. His suit was wrinkled, his hair unkempt, his eyes red-rimmed like he hadn't slept. He spotted me, hesitated, then shuffled over. "Taylor," he said softly, sliding into the chair across from me. I didn't reply. I let the silence stretch until he squirmed. Finally, he exhaled, his shoulders slumping. I messed up. The understatement nearly made me laugh. I lost everything, he continued. My job, my home, my mother's support. Even Kelsey's gone. I thought I had more time. I thought I could fix it before it got this bad. I stared at him, unmoved. And now you want what? Pity? His face twisted. No, I want a chance to make things right. For Harper. For us. The word us made my skin crawl. There is no us, Ryan, I said flatly. There hasn't been for a long time. He leaned forward, desperation flickering in his eyes. Taylor, please. We built a life together. We made a family. You can't just erase that. I made mistakes, yes, but I can change. I swear I can change. I let him spill, let him pour out every rehearsed line, every plea. It was almost pathetic, watching him try to stitch together a narrative where I'd take him back. He even reached across the table once, his hand trembling, but I pulled mine back before he could touch me. "You don't get it," I said finally, my voice cutting through his rambling. "This isn't about change. This is about consequences. For years, you and your mother thought you could manipulate me, humiliate me, steal from me. You thought I'd always stay quiet, that I'd keep the peace. But the silence is gone, Ryan. And so are you." His jaw tightened, anger flashing for a moment before giving way to something else. Fear. "So that's it? You're just going to walk away, after everything?" "Yes," I said simply. He shook his head, his voice breaking. "You'll regret this. One day, you'll regret throwing me away." That's when I leaned forward, locked eyes with him, and spoke the words I'd been holding for months. "You're the architect of your own destruction, Ryan. You built this collapse brick by brick. All I did was show the world the blueprint." The words landed like a punch. He recoiled, his lips parting, but no sound came out. He knew it was true. I stood, dropped a few bills on the table for the coffee, and grabbed my bag. For a moment, I just looked at him, this broken man who once thought he had all the power. Then I turned and walked out, not once looking back. Outside, the sunlight hit my face. The air felt cleaner. For the first time in years, I wasn't dragging chains behind me. The final confrontation wasn't loud. There were no screaming matches, no slammed doors, no thrown glasses. It was quiet, final, absolute. Because revenge isn't just about watching someone fall, it's about standing taller when they're on their knees. And I had never stood taller in my life. A year later, my life barely resembled the wreckage Ryan and Evelyn left behind. The house, the one I'd fought so hard to keep, was finally mine in every sense. The walls no longer echoed with tension. They carried laughter, music, and the sound of Harper humming while she painted at the kitchen table. Every morning felt like proof that I'd made it through. I'd rebuilt my career, turning my skills into a consulting business that paid better than any salary I'd ever earned. The office I carved out at home became my command center, filled with color-coded planners, stacks of contracts, and vision boards that Harper helped decorate with glitter and stickers. She called it Mommy's Victory Room. The scars of the past hadn't vanished. Some nights I still woke up from dreams of Evelyn's smirk or Ryan's pleading eyes. But those moments didn't break me anymore. They reminded me of what I'd endured, and more importantly, what I'd overcome. Harper thrived too. She was 9 now, bolder, freer. She didn't flinch when someone mentioned her father's name, and she didn't carry the shame children often bear for their parents' mistakes. She knew her father's choices weren't her burden. I made sure of it. She had art classes, soccer on weekends, and a circle of friends who filled our home with energy. Ryan's shadow, once looming over every corner of my life, had shrunk to almost nothing. I heard whispers here and there, how he was scraping by with odd jobs, how even old friends avoided him, how Evelyn had retreated entirely from public life. But those whispers didn't sting anymore. They felt distant, irrelevant. Their downfall no longer fueled me. My freedom did. The city hadn't forgotten, though. Every now and then, someone would stop me at the grocery store or after a community event. "You're Taylor, right? You showed everyone what strength looks like." At first, it embarrassed me, but eventually, I learned to accept it. My story wasn't just mine anymore. It had become a warning, a reminder, maybe even a source of courage for others. One afternoon, while Harper and I walked through Clyde Warren Park, she slipped her hand into mine and said, "Mom, I'm glad it's just us." Her voice was calm, steady, like she understood more than her years should allow. I squeezed her hand. "Me too, baby. Me too." It hit me then, fully and deeply. I hadn't just survived betrayal. I'd transformed it. I turned pain into power, humiliation into liberation. I wasn't the woman who stood frozen while her husband and mother-in-law ridiculed her anymore. I was the woman who walked out, fought back, and built something better. Betrayal didn't define me. It freed me. As the sun set that evening, casting the park in gold, I felt something I hadn't in years. Peace. Not the fragile peace of ignoring problems, but the solid, unshakable peace of knowing I'd face the storm and come out stronger. And for the first time in a decade, I could breathe without fear. Thank you for watching. If this story pulled you in, make sure to hit that hype button and show your support. Share your thoughts or similar experiences in the comments. I'd love to hear them. Don't forget to subscribe and smash the like button to keep the stories coming.